Well, hi everyone, this is Don Smith and welcome to this week's video blog. Before I get going, I just want to send out condolences to all of you around the world, wherever you're watching this video, in this crisis time that we're having, and especially those of you who have lost friends or loved ones to this awful virus. This is something that I know is going to stay in my memory the rest of my life, and I'm sure everyone out there. But if anything, I keep believing brighter days ahead, and I keep believing there's a higher power than us who's in control. And I don't want to start a religious debate with this vlog. It's just my own beliefs, and it's how I'm dealing with it. So hopefully this will serve as a little distraction for all of you and get your mind off this virus and onto some photography. And today I don't really want to talk about processing. I thought I would back up and talk about creating a photo. And I posted a couple of images this week of my one-year-old grandson Bradley, who is living with us right now, along with his parents and his uncle. We have our whole family back together, so it's kind of cool while we're waiting for things to open out here in California. And this image is more about introducing a human element into your scene. And I want to start with this image here that my daughter-in-law Jana captured, I don't know, a couple weeks back with her iPhone. And there's a lot of things that are going on really, really cool with this image. First of all, it is the action right here between Bradley sniffing the flowers. And for all of you parents out there, if you've ever read a book to your kids called Pat the Bunny, you will know there is a section in there. I've read it to my kids when they were little, and now I find myself reading it again to my grandson, where it will talk about two little kids, Paul and Judy smells the flowers. So every day, Bradley and I smell the flowers. Well, Jana took this to get real flowers, and this is a word Bradley has learned how to say now, flowers, which is kind of cool in itself. So I was lying in bed one night just scrolling through the Facebook feeds, and I saw this post come up and thought, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to try to recreate that shot, but try to get rid of all this stuff back here that's hard to get rid of with an iPhone and just, simple phone processing. So let's start to where I began. This was, again, about 2 weeks later when the idea came to fruition. Involving something in the landscape with a subject. So a couple of keys that I want to explain to you before we go through just two images and then how I finally crop the images. And the first one is context. And context in photography simply means we have to give some form of an idea to the viewer of what this image is all about. So if you can verbalize that concept to yourself, it becomes a lot easier. At least I find that. So the concept was about, again, Bradley smelling flowers. Okay, let's talk a little bit now about the technical side of things, because we don't want the house to be showing in the frame like that. That starts to create a distraction. And by the way, where I shot this was almost the same time of day. Basically in the same location, but this shadow here, this was getting into the later afternoon, probably around 4 o'clock here in California. This shadow had worked itself out to an edge. So the first thing was to get the lighting right as far as backlight, is place your subject right on an edge. The great landscape photographer Galen Rowell once said, edges in nature is where the action is at. And I can't agree more. Maybe we could do a video on that on another day where I can explain strictly in landscape what I'm talking about. But as far as lighting and drama and what have you, the shadow was probably about where Bradley's shadow is right now in this picture, and I'm sitting down the walkway, and I took my 400 millimeter lens, which happens to be a 2.8. This is a lens that's a Sony lens, beautiful lens. I use it for some of my sports, and even in landscape I find myself using it. I'll run it over to the coast when we get some awesome waves breaking over there, and it's just an amazing lens. Very expensive lens, very expensive piece of glass, but that was my first thought. Go to that glass, because not only do I have 400 millimeter telephoto, but I have an f2.8 to really throw that background out of focus. Number two, if you're going to be shooting any type of human in form or animal, I'm kind of laughing because this applies to animals too. I think the eye contact, your perspective has to be the same perspective in this case as Bradley. In other words, Franz Lanting, great landscape and wildlife photographer, now resides over in Santa Cruz, I believe, and worked years for National Geographic. He put out a book called Eye to Eye, and this is where I really first started paying attention to this concept. Get eye level with your subject. Jana did it here, so her perspective was spot on. The thing with kids is you want to get into their world. So that meant me sitting down with this 400 lens braced on my knee. So this was one of the first series of shots that I did. Again, I've explained the lighting. It's pretty simple. The house goes into kind of recedes into darkness because it's in the shadow, and my exposure is right in here for Bradley's face, and trying to control a little bit of the highlights on the flowers. You can see on this poppy it blew out a little, but that's just because that's a translucent petal and the light's backlit. So I like this. This was the first one. I want to come up with another, or discuss very quickly another concept in photography that's very important and transcends across a lot of genres, and you may have heard of this, is visual movement. There's got to be visual movement or visual flow in your image for it to work. And here, the connection between the eyes, the flowers, the bend in the knees, the body, kind of takes this eye on this, a little bit of an imperfect triangle, I would say, but it's still there. And then around the edges of the frame, there are simply no distracting elements to want to pull the eye off in any direction. I call them eye leaks, where it could go out of the frame. And in fact, in the final rendering, I did put a little bit of a darkened vignette around the frame. And I always kind of kid about vignettes because I rarely use them in my landscapes, but I think they're very much needed in portraiture to hold the eye and your viewer's eye to where you want to go. And I know the great Ansel Adams used to always vignette. I've read every one of his books multiple times. But he would always call someone in, his darkroom assistant or his wife, and he would ask if they noticed the vignette. And if they did, he would back it down. So I think the answer is, how much vignette is enough? Well, it's kind of a feel thing. So only you can be the judge. And sometimes I'll call my wife Barry in, or I'll call my sons in, or Jana, and I'll say, "Can you see this?" All right, so let's move along now to the next image. And now I was really starting to get a little tighter. I'll go back to my advisor, Joe Swan, at San Jose State University when I was majoring in photojournalism. He used to call us all in individually into his office, and it wasn't for a chew-out session. It was to drop some nuggets, some words of wisdom. And I can remember some things as simple as, camera manufacturers should have put the strap lugs so the camera goes vertical on your chest. Joe used to be the photo editor at the San Jose Mercury News before he moved over to San Jose State, and he's now long since passed on, but he was a gem. He talked a lot about eye to eye and perspective, and that's probably where I first heard it. But one of his mantras was, if you think you're tight, the photo can always get tighter, and keep working the composition and the photo tighter until you're just into the message that you want to deliver. So here now, I've moved in a lot tighter. You can see I've eliminated the base of the vase, and it's just this nice little reflection of the poppy cast up into Bradley's eyes and cheeks. And look at that catch light up in there. That's just awesome. I questioned if I had too much negative space over in here, but I don't think so in this one. But this was the one I actually put out on social media. And then I started hearing Joe's voice ringing in my ears about, if you think you're tight enough, get tighter. So one of the greatest learning tools I believe that we have available to us is the simple crop tool. So I came down the next morning and I took this image and I cropped it tighter. And now I think, having gone back between this image, which we can debate, there's a lot of beautiful light and colors and shapes going on with these flowers. But what's the key message? The key message is right here. And here was another little thing, that I didn't like. There's shaft of light. Remember, I was right on the edge of that shadow line. I found this to be one of those eye tugs. And this has been burned down. It means darkened down for you non-photographers. But if I went too much more, it would look unnatural. Yes, I could come over and start cloning. That looked unnatural. I just thought this became a distraction. So rethought it, came up with what I think is going to be the final crop. This picture is going to go out today to Bay Photo Lab to be printed. And I think I'm going to ask Jana, his mom, what they think. I'll get everybody's opinion. Which of the two photos, either that one or that one, that we're going to start making some enlargements for our extended family. So anyway, that's kind of some ideas I wanted to share with you guys. I don't think there's enough on the web out there these days about photo reviews, learning more about the art and the composition side of photos. And I've been very well trained over the years. I think I'm going on my 44th year of doing this for a living now. And I've learned a lot over the years. I've forgotten probably more than I've learned. But a lot of the greats, and just having the pleasure of working around some of the best photographers in the world, my partner Gary Hart, my other partner Ron Madra, and the things I just learned from being in an environment of people like that, being a Sony Artisan, and all the wealth of information that we can discuss over a beer or a glass of wine one night when the day's done. Inevitably we're all creative people, and we all pick each other's brains for ideas, and that's what it's all about. And out of that will morph your style. So anyway, I hope this short lesson helped you guys. I hope, if nothing else, it gave you a distraction from what's going on out in the real world. I'm very positive. I'm choosing to stay positive, and we are going to come out of this thing. There's already signs here in California where I live. We were ground zero where I live. That they may start opening up our businesses in a week or two. We're down to only 3 cases in our entire county, none in our hospitals. So having said that, I'm still staying in, social distancing, wearing my mask when I go out. I want to do everything I can to stop this virus so we can all get back out there and have some fun with our cameras. So again, thanks for sending in the ideas. I plan to do these on a weekly basis until the travel starts in again. And until next week, you guys take care.